Our state has some incredible problems. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. I'm here to talk about that with you and talk about the trends that have shaped this state and dragged us in one direction or another. We're not really we're not realizing the dream we had way back in the early 2000s or even around 2008 or 9 or 10. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker. Welcome to WowBiz Nebraska. We're going to get it on right now. Does your organization have a higher purpose? Think about that for just a minute before you answer. And while you're thinking, I'm going to tell you, thank you so much for joining us here on WowBiz Nebraska. I'm Lynn Hinderrocker, and we are excited to share the cutting edge ideas with you about business in general, trends and strategy, but particularly about economic development here in the state of Nebraska. There's so much happening right now. I'm going to share a lot of statistics, trend stuff, and I'm going to tell you how we can respond collectively as a state, thinking of ourselves as almost a unified entity, and deal with and wrestle with the brain drain problem that has kind of thrust us down insofar as growth is concerned for over 20 years. My name is Lynn Hinderrocker again on WowBiz Nebraska. I don't have my buddy and my commentator, Mr. Bruce Arendt, here with me. He's mending after having a very bad accident, but he is coming along, so we give our best to Bruce, and we will eventually see him right here on at the desk on WowBiz Nebraska. I also want to note that Kevin Penrod, he was our guest on our last show, did an outstanding job talking about the evolution of Omaha, Nebraska, and the psychology and the philosophy behind it, and how we tend to move towards efficiency rather than effectiveness. Think about that for just a minute. Kind of a big difference between efficiency and effectiveness. Kevin's point is we need to differentiate ourselves in an outrageous and beautiful and memorable way. We need to be more effective in attracting bright, talented young people to this city as well as to this state, and he makes a great point. Thank you, Kevin, for being on with us from Mass Mutual, Mr. Kevin Penrod. Words of wisdom, to be sure. All right, I'm going to talk with you about one of the most interesting and elusive things that are coming up all the time in business conversations today. Everybody knows that workforce is a huge issue in Nebraska. It's becoming tiresome just to talk about it. Nobody believes that we can actually turn the boat around. It's a Titanic, and we're too close to the iceberg. There just is no way to go forward in any particularly helpful or interesting way. However, if you talk to the workforce, as I have, if you talk to mostly younger people, their 20s and 30s, and say, why are you not applying for a job, or why did you not choose that company, or why did you leave employment for this particular company? Here is an answer that they're reluctant to share because they can't really explain it very well. And it has to do with this phrase, higher purpose, higher purpose. Now, if I got in the car right now and I drove to Columbus or Broken Bow or drove up to Wayne or Norfolk and just collared the first business owner that I happen to stumble across, and I say, hey, what's your highest purpose? What's your higher purpose? Huh? Go ahead. I want to hear it. I'm pretty sure that maybe 9 out of 10 would say, we don't have a higher purpose, right? We're just kind of grinding out the work. We pay payroll. People make a good competitive check here or wage. And, that's the beginning and the end of our story. And we've been around for 10 or 20 years or whatever. But when you get the younger folks, who are, by the way, the obvious successors to these business owners, you get them alone. First, there's the superficial stuff. Well, I need more flexibility, right? I'm looking for a place where I can stay home if I need to, or go to the office and do whatever I need to do with hours and all that. They start with flexibility. Then they get into the benefits and the perks thing and child care, very, very important to unleash all the women who are great workers, very contributive, but they're home taking care of the kids, and that's a big problem, huge problem. So we have to work our way through all these issues, and meanwhile, the business owners are going, oh, yeah, right? They don't know how to respond to this panoply, right? This incredible portfolio of needs that people, new employees today, want from their employers, right? And if they don't get it, if it's too stressful, if it's burnout, if there's mental health issues, depression, anxiety, right? They're gone. They're out of here. So this is where we get this concept of higher purpose, right? And we bring it in and we lay it down, and there are drums rolling, and we look at it reverently, right? Seriously. You know, I come from the marketing world and branding, big deal, you know, and differentiating, and here's what we believe in, here's what we stand for, this is our product, blah, 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 right? But when you get internally into the culture of a company, most companies don't think about branding their culture, right? They don't have a distinctive and you know, cool way to summarize what their values are and what they really believe in insofar as hiring employees and getting them, frankly, to be committed and loyal to their work and their jobs in the company and so on, right? So I'm going to talk to you very briefly. I'm going to give you some examples of higher purpose and ideas that have worked for years, even decades, with just a few companies you'll be familiar with. Once you hear these, I'm going to drop the subject and go on to something else, but I want you to think, right, till you see the next WowBiz Nebraska show. I want you to think, what could our higher purpose be? By the way, my firm helps people like you come up with that and really think that through carefully and thoughtfully, but here's some examples of higher purpose. We'll start with Mary Kay Cosmetics. Great company out of Dallas, Texas. Everybody knows where the pink Cadillacs come from, right? Mary Kay Cosmetics' higher purpose is, quote, to give unlimited opportunity to women. That's a lot better. It didn't even refer to beauty. Think about that now for a second, right? Now we'll go on to Merck, very well-known pharmaceutical company, to preserve and improve human life. Wow, right? That's a wonderful, wonderful higher purpose, right? I mean, there have got to be people that will get out of bed passionately and excitedly and run to the office, not even care about the money and how that's all going to flow, if they honestly feel that they personally can connect with a higher purpose to preserve and improve human life. Think how broad that is, how big that is. If you can actually do that because you work for that company, in your later years, you'll be telling your grandchildren, I work for a company that enabled me to improve human life. It's an incredible thing. So how about Sony? Great company, electronics company. They've had their ups and downs the last 15 to 20 years. But here's what they say, that their highest purpose is to experience the joy of advancing and applying technology for the benefit of the public. So basically advancing and leveraging, so they're innovative, they're pushing technology to the limits, and they're leveraging it so that, you know, regular people can live a more happier, joyful, efficient life. Interesting. Now here's Walmart. They know what they're about. Here's their highest purpose, their higher purpose, to give ordinary folk, I love that phrase, to give ordinary folk the chance to buy the same things as rich people. Yeah. That pretty much is it, isn't it? Huh? You ever see the look on people's faces when they're walking through Walmart and things seem more accessible, things that we couldn't get before, or we didn't have, we've never had one of those, and all of a sudden we're looking at a 72-inch TV screen or something magnificent, and people can't believe it right there at Walmart, huh? So, you know, there's a whole interesting idea there about equality, some very powerful principles here that I'm sharing with you. And really, you know, if you think about it, it helps you define your personal set of values, because the whole idea is, do my values match the company's values? Have they thought this basic idea through better than I have, right? And if I can hook up with them and share my own value system with the company, man, that's a very good thing. And that's not happening now. That's the point I'm making here today on WowBiz Nebraska, is the workforce is not connecting at a deeper level with the employers in the state of Nebraska. That's the bottom line. 4 out of 5 of those employers don't even know what I'm talking about right now, or at least haven't had the time or felt the need to try to work through these issues, right? A lot of them are cynical. A lot of them think it's all a bunch of hooey. They just need to bank the next money and go home to mama and have dinner and start over the next day. But there is a lasting dimension and component to these right here. And this is how you recruit people and say, oh, they're going to come to work for us. They left you. You didn't have a higher purpose. We believe in this. And we're going to make sure that this person sticks with us by living our values at the office and in the marketplace. So anyway, give that some thought, right? Give that some thought. And if you're interested in speaking with us about that and talking more about it, I'd be happy to chat with you about higher purpose inside the culture of your company. Very, very relevant to workforce and the evolution of Nebraska in broader terms. Speaking of that, 3 weeks ago I attended a conference in Lincoln at an economic development conference, and they had a lot of wonderful, about 80, 90 people there at least, and Hank Robinson from Metropolitan Community College gave a great keynote, detailed for a good hour, maybe longer, with all these statistics about the perilous situation we're in as a state insofar as workforce is concerned. And by the way, let's just acknowledge that we have two kinds of workforce workers, and we have a problem with both of them, by the way. We have laborers, we have hourly workers, and so on, and then we have what we'll call knowledge workers, software developers, engineers, people like that. And we have problems attracting and keeping both of them. But I'm particularly interested in in what we would call the knowledge workers, what used to be called, by the way, back in 2001, 2, 3, cultural creatives. That was the phrase that was applied to these people. But the key to know whether or not they fit into the category, by the way, is whether they can solve problems on their own. Just think about that for a second. Ask yourself, how many employees do I have that can see a problem, identify the symptom, the issue, the core issue, and then come to me as the boss and say, I saw this, I did this, the problem's pretty much resolved, and solve problems without getting you involved in all the other details. That's a knowledge worker, right? That's a knowledge worker. And when you talk to those people, by the way, they are craving internal psychological and philosophical wisdom themselves. Very interesting. This is what we're moving into is emotional intelligence, began that 10 years ago. Leadership. Leaders are now being defined, used to be defined as mechanics. Find a problem, go directly to it, solve the problem, done, next problem. That's what leaders used to be and were expected to be. Today, leaders are expected to be gardeners. Gardeners, right? Think about that now. It's a really interesting thing. What does a gardener do? Keeps the weeds out so that the plants can blossom and grow. Of course, you as a worker or employee, you would be the plant that I'm alluding to in this symbolism, and the weeds would be distractions, antagonism, issues with clients, politics, all that crap that get in the way of your professional growth as well as your personal growth, all right? Plus, in a garden, and I'm going to drop this in a minute, but this is such a powerful metaphor. All these vines, and leaves, and we have different bugs. And I mean, it really is a biosphere or a biosystem, an ecosystem, a good, robust garden, and all the different plants are kind of feeding the other, and the ground is appropriate. So it's so wonderful if you're a manager or a boss, a leader of a company, think consciously now about being a gardener. Am I cultivating? Am I planting the right seeds? Am I appreciating the beauty of the flowers that emerge from the garden? That's today's leader, and I'd love to talk about that leadership development. Listen, we're going to stop right now, right here in the middle of WowBiz Nebraska, and tell you about the sponsor of this particular show. It's a new company, very relevant, by the way, to the workforce issue that we discussed before. When research is done with young workers, young, graduates, we'll say 20s and 30s, and they're kind of looking for a career. By the way, they don't leave the state or any state until they're really on their second job, maybe on their third job. Just so you know, it's a very interesting kind of quirk in the pattern that I'm describing right now. But if you talk to them and say, what are you looking for? What do you really want? And don't tell me it's a paycheck and a salary and all that. What I'm looking for is two things. That's what they'll tell me or any other researcher that's a good listener. The first is I'm looking for an interesting job. I'm looking for an interesting company that's innovating, that's doing some things new, that would listen to me. Because I have ideas. I've learned here in college. They've told me it's important be contributive and ideas and sharing and coming up with new ways to create value, all that. So that's the first thing. They want a company that will enable them to express that important, innovative knowledge that they've gained. A boss that will listen to me and actually like what I'm saying, right? That's the first thing. That's more important than anything. But the second thing these people want is a lifestyle environment. I'm going to say cool, for lack of a better word, a place with good vibes, usually downtown, doesn't have to be, but it could be downtown where I could live and work, don't even have to drive to work, that'd be so cool, and there'd be apartments up above and retail below and offices and really great design. And the buildings that I would live in would have to be sustainable, right? Sustainable. I don't want to live in a polluting building anymore, just like I don't want to live in a polluting vehicle. So I'm looking for an interesting company that does innovative things, and I'm looking for a lifestyle kind of environment, possibly downtown, someplace. Could be Boise, Idaho, could be Charleston, could be Lincoln, Nebraska. Don't know. Now I'm going to talk to you about a company, I'll be very quick about this. This company's called Urban Natural America. 2 words, Urban Natural America. So this is a national trend, but we're applying it here in the state of Nebraska. And it drives contrast and eclectic design in buildings that actually evoke, in a rather subtle way, good vibes, kind of help our visual cortex release dopamine, and it's just kind of place where you kind of want to hang out. Usually it's wood and metal. You'll see a lot of that design. You've seen that before around. It's not the prominent one, but it's very definitely seen in all urban areas today. But the natural is a lot of greenery. We call it biophilics. A lot of greenery, a lot of wood and metal with furniture, exteriors of the buildings, lobbies, floors. It's always joining in the design of the building. Now, think of your downtown. It's always joining organic and synthetic, and so far as materials, vivid colors with muted colors. All right, I know you get the point right now that I'm making. This is how these young professionals that will drive your city forward over the next 20, 30, 40 years, this is where they want to live. This is what they want to be, right? It's a full expression of who they really are, very personal and very unique and different from the previous generation, Gen X or Boomers or whatever. They have a different style, a different way of looking at place. And this is truly placemaking that will attract these young folks. Give them an interesting job, allow them to innovate, put them in a lifestyle environment that is eclectic. And you got a winner. You got a winner. All right. So that's Urban Natural America, urbannaturalamerika.com, URBANATURAL, America.com. Please check it out. You're going to be surprised at that website. All right, we're going to get back to the main thrust of WowBiz Nebraska. Again, thank you for watching. I'm Len Hinderrocker. I'm here all by myself here this evening, and that's okay because I've built up so much stuff to share with you. I'm going to tell you a story. It's kind of a personal thing, but it leads me to who I am and where I am today, and some people actually think that's a good thing. We'll see. When I was 16, I was a farm boy, and I belonged to 4-H, agricultural organization. You know, everybody knows about those kids from the farm that take their cows and pigs to the county fair every fall and all that. I was a part of that, of course. And when I was 16, a very important age for me at that time, and I went to like a leadership camp, 4-H camp, out in the woods, cabins, trees, cicadas everywhere. Well, anyway, so when we got there, the whole deal, we were all set, there was maybe 200 of us, something like that. And we were separated into little segments and go to the cabins. Everybody take group 8 or 10 people and go to a cabin. And there was a leader there. And we all got into these musty cabins, just exactly the way you're imagining it right now. Maybe a little bit dusty and musty, olive drab blankets on all the beds. It was kind of an interesting place to be out in the middle of a forest, really. So we're all sitting there kind of, self-conscious. These are all strangers, people that we've never met before, our age, of course, and one older facilitator. And the facilitator said, well, everybody, he says, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to let you say whatever comes to mind. Whatever's in your head floating around, just say it. No inhibitions, whatever you're thinking of, just right here. Nobody's going to interrupt you. Everybody has a right to speak up, speak out, say what they want to say. We're just going to see what happens. Wow. Right? By the way, this was really a big trend in the self-awareness movement back in the 60s and 70s. All right? It was a big deal at that time. It was going on everywhere. So everybody sat around. Nobody said anything, you know. In like 9 seconds, I spoke up, right? I spoke up. And I had a lifetime. I was only 16, but I had a lifetime of things that I had to say. And it seemed like the right time to say it, right? And my heart was full of irony and anger and resentment and a whole whirlwind of conflicting and contrasting emotions. And I thought that I chose that day in my life to reveal all these things. And here's the metaphor. Just imagine a rapids, if you're on a canoe and you're in a rapids on a river and you're going down a rough rapids and so on and you're almost out of control and so on. That's what was coming out of my mouth. It was so infused with spirit, I didn't know what I was going to say next. But every word or phrase seemed semi-profound, see? It was just coming out. So I was talking about hypocrisy and religion and education and conditioning and maturing and growing up and not wanting to grow up and sex and opposites and oh my God, it just came out of me so fast and so strong and so sincere. I didn't care if there was one in there or 100. I really didn't care. They challenged me to say what was in my mind, what was in my heart, and they were going to listen. And as time wore on, I did this for 90 minutes with barely a breath in between each thought. Right? It was a cleansing in a way, but people were tearing up. I was touching on some pretty deep topics, probably had never been discussed before, perhaps in their mind. I don't know, but I was letting it out, man. And I didn't know where it was going to go, what was going to happen, didn't care. So anyway, after 90 minutes, the leader of the group said, well, he says, let's go back to the canteen and get our stuff together, and we'll go back there and join the rest of the group. He didn't say good, bad, nothing like that. So anyway, we walked out the door, and we kind of trudged out the door like a bunch of horses that had been rode hard and put up wet, rode out of the rodeo. People were just wiping their eyes and their tears and whatever else. Well, anyway, one of the girls that was there said, she kind of tugged at my arm, and she said, can I talk to you? I'd like to visit with you right away. So I said, all right, sure, And so everybody trudged up to the canteen except for her and I. And she said, why don't you come over here? And there was a little area, a little fire pit area off in a little stand or grove of trees. And she said, I want to chat with you over here. And it was really a kind of an interesting environment to stand there and chat with this stranger, this girl I didn't know. She said, I just want you to know that you said, word for word, everything I've been thinking my entire life, but didn't have the ability or the courage to say it. But you said it. You said it. She says, I got to say this. I think I think we're related at some level. I'm deeply connected to you. I think I love you. I guess I love you. I don't know. This is an amazing thing. I was speechless. I had no idea what to say. Anyway, when it was all over, I didn't see the lady much at all after that and so on. My mother came to pick me up from the camp, of course, and we're driving in my old blue Bonneville, driving home. And I normally chat with my mother about how camp was and all that. I said nothing. She couldn't believe it. But what I had, and I'm going to wrap up the show here today and tell you to watch the next show, is a moment of clarity, ladies and gentlemen, a moment of clarity. This is the first time in my life at age 16, coming home from that camp, I knew then who I was and what I was on this planet to do. Now, I don't know if you've ever had that moment in your life. You had it when you were young, or maybe you've never had that moment, but I had and a deep insight, a sense of clarity that what I was supposed to do with it on this planet is to say, like that lady said, to say what others want to say, but for one reason can't say. To say those words for them, to kind of push through the inertia of living in our society and so on, and say what everybody wants to hear, say what they want to say but can't say it. They don't know how to articulate it. And that's my job, is to articulate your concerns, your fears, your aspirations. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm here with this program. And that's why I'm a business person specializing in innovation, by the way. So on our next show, I'm going to tell you what it is that I need to say, right? What came out of that seminal foundational experience that was so profound for me and gave me a deep sense of satisfaction, but also gave me the itch to get going. I wanted to get going. And I have that same drive to this day. So I'm going to talk to you the next show. Next WowBiz Nebraska, coming right up at the top of the next show. We'll talk about 12 presentations that I give. Some are businessy, some are personal, but they will help you grow. They will stretch you. They are mind expanding in many ways. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing this show. And that's why I appreciate your watching. Thank you so much right here on WowBiz Nebraska. I'm Lynn Hinderrocker. I'll tell you more about Nebraska's perilous situation with workforce. I may have a guest. They'll be animated and excited as you would expect. We'll see you next time right here on WowBiz Nebraska.